So that really, what you're saying there really makes me think about what your new project about Thonglor.
Yeah.
And that seems to me, from what I've read about it, is a very particular, very personal film about a very particular location.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That reflects on that space of the city, but it's also, you know, it's looking back over time and thinking about that kind of transformation of that space.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm writing it right now. It's called Thonglor Kids. Thonglor is the street I live on, so it's very clearly I'm saying that okay, I'm making this film, just reminding myself that I'm making this film about my neighborhood. So staking out this space. I haven't seen anybody else do it. So again, like this is sort of a space that I know well, and yeah, it has to do again. You know, like people always say, like directors often remake the same film over and over again. I'm kind of remaking films that I've already made. You know, like I'm remaking that short film, Bangkok Blues. I made another one called Bangkok Stories. Yeah, all my film titles tend to be places. And then this one is called Thonglor Kids, which is also a place. And I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. I do start a lot from places and spaces. I suppose because being an independent filmmaker and always working with a low budget, you really only have control over a few things. You know, you start with a place, a location to shoot, and you start with some actors that are really good. And you try to create something magical out of these two things because you don't really have any money to do anything else. You know, filmmakers are broken up into two different types. You know, one type is they really go crazy on their imagination, but they're working in an industry or in a way where they're able to get the budget to do it. So the obvious cases would be to do war films or dinosaur films or superhero films. You can pretty much write whatever you want because you have the budget and the mechanism to make it happen. And then the other side are most other filmmakers who you know that you only have this amount of budget. So you're pretty much just writing the entire story to fit the budget. You're working in the opposite way, right? So you are using your imagination, but you're saying I have to basically my imagination needs to fit into this box that the budget allows me, and so that's where I've always worked from, and so I guess it's just become a part of me as a filmmaker that I always work from places because it's concrete. Okay, like I know I'm going to shoot here, and I know how much that costs to shoot here for 10 days or to shoot here for 20 days. And I'm going to use this guy and this girl because I know them and they're my friends, they're cheap, I don't have to pay them, buy them lunch, whatever. Yeah. So I can control, I know what I'm doing. And so I guess it's all become part of who I am as a filmmaker. So I think throughout my career I've ended up a lot like this, where I'm kind of doing small films with only a few people in real places that I know. And this new film is the same. Thonglor Kids is the same. It's just a continuation of that. Yeah, and so as I said, you know, it's about people in their 20s hanging out in this neighborhood called Thonglor. And that was me. That was me, you know, like a decade or two ago, you know.
And how would you say the space itself has changed in that time?
In Thonglor?
Yeah, since a decade ago, since it was.
The space has become more commercial, that's for sure. As I said, Thonglor in the 80s was a residential area, probably because it used to be a dead-end street. And then at the end of the 80s or early 90s, they built a bridge because it used to end at a canal, so you couldn't obviously drive over the canal. Then one day they built a bridge over the canal that connected to another big street in the back. So now Thonglor becomes sort of an avenue, and it's become a lot more commercial. Now if you go there, you have to sort of go into the side streets in order to see the original residential homes, because the outer the edge of the street now has become all commercial. So it's all coffee shops and restaurants and office buildings and this kind of thing. it's very rare to have a residence, an actual home on the main street now. Most of the homes are inside now. Yeah, so just visually it's changed. But if you just walk right towards, so if you just walk in, like walk in a couple minutes, you start to see the way that it looked in the old days, because that stuff hasn't really been touched. And so Thonglor has become a mix between sort of the facade looks like it's very modern. It's sort of very commercial, hip coffee shops and this kind of thing. But it's a very thin layer. It's like an onion. You just peel away the outside layer, and inside it looks roughly the way it did when I was a kid. And so just brings back a lot of memories. I mean, I live there now. I drive past these streets every day. And so I even remark to my wife all the time, like, oh, look, like, this is the way it looked like when I was a kid.
Can you give us some examples of particular things, particular aspects that you remember from when you were a kid that are maybe still there, or architectural things, or different ways of buildings, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing that defined Thonglor, the street, when I was a kid, was that it was a dead end. Mm-hmm. So we would ride our bikes down at the end near the canal, and there was no cars, so you would just sort of ride your bikes there. It was a dead end. And today that's gone. That's the main difference of the street, is that it's no longer a dead end street. So yeah, that's the thing that sticks in my mind the most. And then the style of the houses. The houses around there have a certain style. There are houses that are built in the 70s. So most of these homes, once you kind of go into the side streets in that neighborhood, are usually homes built in the 70s. So they have a certain style.
Can you describe the style?
Not really. I mean, I know what it is in my mind, but I can't describe it.
We'll drive down there later.
Yeah, it'd be much better. You just stick a photograph there.
Yeah.
But it's a certain look in the 70s. And Bangkok's changed very rapidly. So you can kind of drive down Thonglor, and if you're my age, you can identify this building was built in the 70s, this is built in the 80s, this is built in the 90s, and this is built in the 2000s. It's very clear because all the developments and stuff follow a certain fashion. So like everybody kind of jumps on the bandwagon, and things change really rapidly. And so you can really see as you drive down, like which buildings are built in which decade. And so it's quite interesting. You can actually just see the change that's happened in the neighborhood. So that's the visuals of the movie. That's the actual neighborhood. I'm just talking about the experience of, I guess, 20-somethings, 30-somethings living in the neighborhood. So there's normal stuff: work, life, love, politics. Yeah, just stuff that affects us now. And I suppose at the end of the day, I really think that this project has to do with the experiences of growing up now, of being in Thailand now.